looking out, anticipating their needs. And it is just a moment, you can see it on their face, of like absolute joy, and it's like such an easy one.
Think about, how can I be one step ahead? It's not rocket science, actually.
One thing that we've done at our gym is we've really infused this into our training. So in our monthly meetings, we bring the whole team together, all clubs, all branches, the whole team, going through that, seeing some different responses, such as a positive one or a negative one, has really, really helped our team. My name is Jack Thomas. I'm one of the co-founders of The Fit Guide, which is the global standard of fitness excellence. Welcome to 5-Star Fitness Podcast. This show is all about bringing the very best from hospitality, infusing it into the fitness industry so we can have better businesses, more profitable businesses, but importantly, positively impact more people. I'm joined today by Matt Lavender, who is co-founder at The Fit Guide. Welcome, Matt. And today we are talking about, we touched on it in a previous episode, really what makes the difference between the 4-star hotels and the 4-star gyms and the 5-star hotels and 5-star gyms, really the best of the best. And you've got a nice little acronym that you use for that. Maybe you can just talk us through it. Mind the Gap, which I really liked when I first heard it.
Yeah, when I started my hospitality consultancy, where I do training for hotels 5 years ago now, I knew that one of the things that I'd really want to talk about are these 3 things that 5-star hotels consistently do. It's not the only thing. There's loads of other things, obviously, but we've already talked about that. It tends to be a bit of a trend that these places that are doing the best in the world, they consistently do them. And the standards are a bit wordy, to be honest. The way Forbes, for example, word them, and it's like staff expresses a genuine interest in the guests, such as by asking questions. I think that's something like that. And then there's one about anticipatory service, and again, they're long-winded. So when I kind of broke it down, I thought, well, you can kind of make that into an acronym, GAP. And I was thinking of GAP, okay, mind the gap. And then obviously I'm from London. Anyone that's been on the underground will know the sign and the announcement, mind the gap between the platform and the edge. But I thought it was quite nice because, mind, think about these things. I thought it was a really nice way of just sort of training people in hotels. And so that's kind of how I came up with the idea. And every hotel I work at, they love it. And by the end of the week, or 2 weeks that I'm there, they're everyone, mind the gap, don't forget, mind the gap. So it works.
Yeah, I love a good acronym. It really does help. I mean, I was on a podcast, I can't remember which one now, and they asked me, what are the 5-star gyms doing that the other gyms aren't? And I was like, perfect. And it actually helped me to just recall it in a way that I would have struggled otherwise. So I was like, G, genuine interest, A, anticipatory service, P, personalization.
I noticed you didn't credit me for that, Jack. I watched that episode. I was like, when am I going to get a mention? I should copyright it, really. But
you should. I know you've got badges now, right?
I do get badges. I give out these little badges to staff members just to remind them. And you can buy a lot of Mind the Gap merch, actually. There's t-shirts, caps, hats, so
Nice, I should have trademarked that for sure. And what I found really interesting, and you talked about this at the HFA show in 2025, was that there is this real trend that if you're doing these things, you're likely doing some of the easier things that are done, right? Because showing genuine interest and anticipating guests' needs and personalizing is a little bit harder and it's a little bit tougher and it takes a certain mindset.
Right.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if you have this mindset, you're just very likely doing a lot of other things. So if you can focus on getting these 3 things, it seems like a lot of other things just take care of themselves.
Yeah, I always sort of, when I'm doing training, I talk about these after I've already done the foundations, where I talk about the kind of the basics, the fundamentals of great hospitality service, like making eye contact and the way you dress and answering questions and knowledge and all this sort of stuff. And I think you're right. Look, it'd be very unusual for hotels or gyms to be consistently doing the Mind the Gap if they weren't already doing the basics. So I think that's why we find that, although it's only a few standards within our evaluation reports that we do for the Fit Guide, that when gym studios are doing those things, they tend to be doing other things really well.
Did you see the same thing with hotels as well?
Yeah,
was it the
absolutely.
same trend?
Absolutely. To have that kind of mindset, to be one step ahead, it's almost like you need to be doing the fundamentals right, second nature, so you kind of have the headspace, to be able to do those things, because actually anticipating guest needs, it takes skill. Some people, it kind of comes naturally, but it means you've got to kind of have the mental bandwidth to be noticing things about guests or asking questions in order to come up with ideas for how you can anticipate their needs. So if all you're doing is focusing on the technical aspects of your job or getting the basics right, like being able to form a sentence, then you just don't, it's very unlikely that you're able to do those three things that we spoke about.
So let's dig into the GAP then.
Sure.
We'll start off with G. What is genuine interest? And maybe just a couple of examples of how gyms can do this, or maybe how you've seen gyms do this.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so genuine interest, and we'll probably go into it in a later episode, but there's different aspects to it. But, as the name suggests, it's showing an interest in guests or clients, members, in the case of fitness, really getting to know them. And, the biggest way to do that is by asking questions, to understand their needs, their preferences, but also to sort of show that we genuinely care about them, that we're thinking of them as an individual, not just a station number or a hotel or room number, for example. And so asking questions is the biggest one. But I think, when I do the training and, sort of an hour on this, but so I'll just touch on it briefly. But even asking questions, it's about the way you ask questions. So I do a lot of work on how to ask questions and how to respond to them so the questions are genuine. And to give you examples, so, if I'm checking into a hotel, a lot of staff members say, "Oh, how's your journey, Miss Lavender?" But if they then just literally move on to the next stage of the check-in process, and if their next question in response to my answer is, "Can I get your credit card and passport, please?" That's not genuine, right? You've asked a question because you've been told to ask a question, but it's not genuine. So be like, "Oh, well, wonderful. I'm so pleased you had a nice journey and you're here now. So, enjoy your stay." Then it becomes genuine. I think, some of the examples that we've seen in gyms on our travels are, as you're coming in, just say, "Oh, lovely to see you. Are you living locally? Do you work near here?" And then there's maybe more questions that lead on to more about getting to know your training needs, which are more specifically. But really, genuine interest is, it's before you even get to that stage where you're trying to sell them a package or to find out, what we need to train them on. It's more about, how's your day? Like, where, what did you do last night? Have you got anything planned for the weekend? But those are the kind of things, but asking them in a genuine manner.
I think a real test for whether it's genuine is if it's a negative response, can they deal with it? I remember when I was a lot younger, maybe 17, 18, a good friend of mine had broken up with his girlfriend. He had a massive argument, and he went to the local shop to just buy a few bits, and he sort of, knew the guy who was behind the counter, and the guy was, "Oh, how's it going, mate?" My friend just said, "To be honest, mate, it'd be much better." He goes, "Okay, that's £3.50, please."
Yeah, that's exactly. I see it all the time. If they ask you, "How's your journey?" and you say, "I was a bit tired," and then they just say nothing. But the good hotels are, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear it was a bit of a stressful journey, but you're here now, so you can relax." That's what you're looking for, right?
It's funny because I think often it's just a lack of training means they're not going to be able to really handle that.
No.
They might actually really care, but they might just be a bit awkward. They haven't planned for it. They weren't expecting that answer. Yeah. And you can absolutely role play that. But how are you feeling today? Not very well. Oh, what's up? Anything I can help with? Just something like that.
I do training where I literally say, ask a question, answer it, respond. That's it. Don't do anything else. And it's like, I know you ask questions every day in your normal life, but all I want you to do, ask a question, listen to their response, and then respond to it. And some people find that really hard. I say, don't respond with another question, and that's really hard for people. How's your journey? Yeah, it was really good. What are you doing today? No, before you even say, what are you doing today? Happy to hear that. Pleased to hear that. It's that response before you move on that actually makes it genuine.
It links to what you were saying, like close the interaction. Okay, great to hear. Or, sorry to hear that even. It just sort of closes that interaction, and then perhaps you can move on to the next stage. Okay, we've done the G. Let's do the A, which is, I always struggle to say this, anticipatory service.
Yeah, well, so do I, and I say it like a million times.
I used to say anticipatory service. I don't think that's right.
It's my favourite topic in the whole of hospitality, really. It's anticipatory means being one step ahead, to know what a guest, or in our case, maybe a member or a client, knows what they want before they have to ask for it, going above and beyond, surprising and delighting. Now, I've started to separate it out a little bit recently, but I think, traditionally anticipatory service, being one step ahead, going above and beyond, and then you can go into the sort of the realms of sort of Will Guidara's, unreasonable hospitality, where you really do, sort of wild and wonderful things. But in a simpler sense, it's just doing things before somebody has to ask for it.
And we're not seeing this a huge amount in the fitness industry.
Not
I think
really.
This is really one that hasn't scored as well as you'd like. I mean, as my experiences as a consumer of fitness before we set up the Fit Guide and since, it's very rare, I think, that they anticipate our needs. And actually, the bar we've set for this is relatively low. Perhaps you can talk about the standard. But let's talk a bit about my gym and what I've taught our front desk staff to do. We call them customer service and operations. An easy one is if someone's sweating a lot in the class and they didn't pick up a workout towel, and you see that someone's sweating a lot, perhaps they're using their shirt to wipe their brow, just run over a little workout towel, which we give free at our gym, and say, oh, here we go, sir, or here we go, madame. And the look of delight and surprise on their face, because I guarantee they've never had that at a gym ever. And it's that looking out, anticipating their needs, showing that they care. And it is just a moment, you can see it on their face, of like absolute joy, and it's like such an easy one. Or if their water bottle's empty, going to fill it up. You know, there's a few basic ones that you can do that will absolutely delight them with something very, very simple.
Yeah, I think once you get into the mindset and have an understanding of what anticipatory service is, then you're able to be constantly looking for things that you could do. So, you know, we talk a lot about, and it sort of ties between genuine interest and anticipatory service, but you know, sometimes you learn things about a guest from asking them questions, but then you can also learn about them from observation. So literally looking around and seeing, you know, who are they, what could I do, and active listening, so overhearing a conversation. But it's really, you know, Forbes used this idea, and I sort of pinched it a little bit because I like it, which is, you know, catching golden nuggets. You know, so golden nuggets, in your case, the golden nugget would be noticing that someone was sweating, because then you can use that golden nugget to then go and do something for them and give them the towel. You know, for example, you know, a driver driving the guest from the hotel from the airport to the hotel, and they overhear them mentioning, oh, I've got a meeting later and my button's missing from my shirt. That's going to be frustrating. Maybe they overhear that. And then that's the golden nugget that they caught. Then they pass that on to housekeeping, who say, oh, we heard, I hope you don't mind, but we noticed that, you know, perhaps you might need us some help with sewing the button. We can do that for you. Do you see what I mean? So rather than the guest kind of get, oh, what am I going to do? Calling up, can I get a sewing kit? Or you know, that you proactively do that. So I think it's getting into the mindset of looking for things that you can do that are anticipatory.
Yeah, I love this idea. You know, you stay in a hotel, you have an iced Americano in the morning with the morning paper and the sugar separate, and then the second day they just kind of have that ready for you. And I think as gym owners, we can really look at, are there any little moments? Does someone always buy a bottle of Gatorade before their class, and you notice them coming and you quickly get it from the fridge? Like, here we go, would you like another bottle of Gatorade? And it's so small, it's so simple, but just so unbelievably impactful. And I think if we can look ahead to that as gym owners, there are certainly opportunities to do it. It might not be quite as easy or as obvious as a hotel member journey, but absolutely you can do it. And the disproportionately high amount of impact it has, and how much it will delight them and the people that they'll tell about it, it's really worth considering. The last one, of course, is personalization. What does that mean?
Well, let me give you a little test, Jack. Can you remember that famous quote that I always bring out from Dale Carnegie? Do you remember what it is?
Yeah, it's the most beautiful sound in their language to anyone is their name. Something butchering
like
it a little bit.
To be honest, I've said it a million times and I still can't get it word for word. But yeah, the sweetest sound in any language to any person, to him or her, is the sound of their own name. Something like that. If you piece that together, we could probably get it there. But it's essentially this idea that, you know, we love to hear the sound of our own names, and so using guest names is something that the best hotels do regularly. It's something that obviously we think would really benefit that sort of connection building within the fitness industry as well. I think it's interesting just to sort of touch on why it's you know, it's impactful. And you know, I always say when I'm doing my training is that, you know, the only people that would really know your name are friends, family, neighbours, colleagues, people who, in an ideal world, you should feel comfortable around and you should feel in a hospitable environment. And so I think when we hear the sound of our own name, psychologically, it sort of transports us into a safe environment. And so in the hotel industry, it really shows that, you know, you're here, you're part of the family, you're in a safe environment, you're around good people. We see you as an individual rather than a room number. And so there's a little bit more in personalization, and maybe we'll talk about it in future episodes. But in essence, it's consistently using guests' names or clients' names in a professional way that aligns with their preferences as well.
Whenever I talk about this particular point, I always say we have an unfair advantage in the fitness industry because we have our Hapanas, our Glow Foxes, our Mind Bodies that we can refer to, and we can see the names there. So we can cheat quite easily, actually. You might need to run over to the computer quickly, but you can kind of see what their name is. And I've used that to my advantage a few times. I've kind of noticed a familiar name. We have photos as well. Someone I haven't seen for a while, I will check their name. I remember there was one gentleman, Sammy, and I don't think he'd been with us for like 6 months or so. And he walked in, I was like, Sammy, good to see you. And he just looked completely and utterly stunned. And he was like, how do you know my name? And I was like, yeah, Sammy used to train in our old location. They closed a year ago. And he just looks absolutely shocked and definitely sort of delighted. But I'd basically cheated. I mean, I did recognize the name, but I looked at the name, looked at the photo, made sure it was the right person. So we really do have opportunity to do that. And I think once you start doing it and seeing the impact it has, it really has a big impact. And, maybe we'll go into some tips on how to remember names in a future episode. Yeah. Are there any other reasons that these things are so impactful? Any other little gems, I guess, you can leave us with in terms of hitting these GAP?
I think, just get into a mindset of doing those things. If you look at it, every time you have an interaction with one of your members or client, if you can try to get one good question in, that shows that you're interested in them and their day and their life, and respond to it. So it has to be genuine. Think about, how can I be one step ahead and use their name? It's not rocket science actually. But again, it's about getting into that mindset. I think in a future episode, let's really dig into it. I'd love to give more tips and more examples. But I think for the time being, I think that the sort of take home message is, when you have an interaction, any interaction, mind the gap. Try and do those 3 things.
It's really had a big impact on me, the gap, and I've really thought about it a lot. And the one thing that we've done at our gym is we've really infused this into our training. So in our monthly meetings, we bring the whole team together, all clubs, all branches, the whole team. We do a lot of role plays on this. And it really, really helps just going through that, seeing some different responses, such as a positive one or a negative one, has really, really helped our team. So thank you for that, Matt. I do appreciate it.
You're welcome. I mean, I suppose one last thing I could maybe just say, if you get people into that mindset, use it as a challenge. Ask people. Give us some examples of what you did today. Share ideas, because often, when you start sharing ideas of how you can put this into practice, that's really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for listening, for watching. If you think that the fitness industry and your gym, your facility, your experience can benefit from more hospitality, do subscribe to this podcast, to this YouTube channel. We will be putting out regular content between myself and Matt, and also telling these stories, the backgrounds of the world's leading fitness founders as well. Thank you for listening. We'll see you on the next episode.